So did you ever have a pitcher make you so mad that you told the batter what was coming?
No, I would never do that.
So that's just Hollywood.
But I do know, I don't even know if it's true or not, but Jim Price, who used to play for caught for Detroit, you all know, Detroit fans, when during the 68 years, Bill Freehan was a starting catcher. Well, Jim Price used to catch as well. And he told me a story that he actually told, um, I think it was either Roger Maris or Mickey Mantle. I want to say it was Roger Maris. Told him, when he was chasing Babe Ruth's record, that Denny McLain was out on the mound, and he goes, hey, Denny just signaled me and said he's just throwing you fastballs, and he says he looked back at me and yeah, right, and so at first pitch, Denny threw one right down the middle. He thought he was setting him up for something, and he looked back at Price. He goes, I told you. He goes, he's throwing you fastballs right down the middle. So he says, boom, here comes another one. He throws it down the middle again. He looks at Price, and he's going, come on. He goes, you better pull the trigger here sooner or later. He goes, he wants to throw you fastballs right down the middle. So he throws him another one, boom, he hit it into the upper deck. So one of those home runs that Roger Maris hit, during the year that he broke Babe Ruth's record, was a gift from Denny McLain. And I don't know if you could really say that the catcher was the one that, let him know, because Denny let him know that, I think before they went out there, when Roger comes up, you let him know, I'm just throwing fastballs right down the chute. So I guess that does go on, but honestly, I've never done that.
So what was it about Jack Morris that just irritated people? I mean, he was a tremendous pitcher, obviously.
He was. He really was. He was a great athlete. I think he told me that he used to ski jump when he was back in Minnesota. That was one of his activities that he did. You got to be a pretty good athlete to do that. I don't care who you are. But, he used to be able to do things that I would just go, wow, there's not too many guys can do that. But and we started in the minor leagues together. He signed after I had already been in the organization for a couple of years. We hooked up in Double-A in Montgomery, Alabama, when he first signed. And you could tell that he was a great pitcher. He had great stuff, was a lot more friendly and cordial back then. But as his career progressed, he just, got a little more ornery and didn't want to talk to anybody. And he would, self-proclaimed silences for, weeks and months on end, didn't want to talk to any reporters. And it was, he just, I don't know, I guess he had some demons he was battling, that nobody knew about. But, he would just go off. But I've always said that, of all the guys that I've ever caught in my career, I would probably put him number one as the guy that I would like to catch, the guy that I enjoyed catching. It was never a dull moment. He had great stuff. He could just blow through lineups, as easy as anybody, or he could give it up as good as anybody. But when he gave it up, you could count on there being some type of a show, where he was. I remember him. He gave up a home run to somebody on Toronto. I want to say it was George Bell. And the next time George Bell came up, when he stepped in the batter's box, he looked right at him and said, I'm gonna hit you. Just like that. And I was like, what's wrong with this guy? And he did. And George Bell didn't do one thing about it. I was shocked. But I was just like, I go, what's the matter with you? He goes, I don't know. He goes, I just, I was so mad. And I go, well, if you're going to hit somebody, don't stand there and tell them you're going to hit them. But, Jack Morris had great stuff. He was a tremendous competitor. One of the knocks that I have always had against him, and he understands that now, he would turn around and yell at guys and, if they booted a ball or, didn't think they were in the right position to make a play or whatever. He didn't do it very often, but, nobody likes to be shown up. And, I felt like having to, remind him of that. You can't do that. I probably wouldn't have, I didn't say it in those nicer terms, but I would just, and I wasn't the only guy. You can't be showing your teammates up. They're out there, busting their butt for you, and they don't scream at you when you give up a home run or whatever. So it's kind of a give and take thing. But he just, for some reason would get upset with the reporters. I guess they must have written things that he wasn't real thrilled about, and then he would just say, "That's it. I'm not talking to anybody." Or he would lambaste them in the clubhouse, and he just got to have a little bit of an attitude, and
Did he have land in Montana?
he did.
Yeah. When I was starting out in the business, I got an internship.
About a 10,000 acre wheat
Yes,
farm or something in Montana.
that's right. In '94, at Jacobs Field. It was the first year of Jacobs Field.
Yeah, and in fact, I think he was actually pitching with Cleveland.
Yes,
And they let him fly
that's
up there between starts.
it drove him crazy. I worked in the scoreboard room, and you got all the stories because the scoreboard room had the red phone, which is what they called the bat phone, which was down to the dugouts. Albert Belle was on that team. Anytime it rang, everybody freaked out because they knew it was Albert Belle. They'd played the wrong music, something, his song, and he would call screaming at them. But
got some great Albert Bell stories too.
let's.
Because
I'm going to
I don't know
hurry
if
up.
any of you
Then.
remember, but I actually played for Cleveland. That was the same year I was in Albuquerque.
Well, you had a brief stint.
I was in Albuquerque for 3 weeks, and then Sandy Alomar Jr. went down with a back injury. My agent called me and said, the Indians need a catcher. And Sandy Alomar is not coming back. He's looking at back surgery, and they've got Junior Ortiz over there, and they need somebody. I said, I'm their man. Let's do it. Even though I hated that field. This was before Jacobs Field.
At Municipal
Stadium.
Oh, that place, the dump.
But anyway, I go over there with Albert Bell and the boys, and Mike Hargrove was the manager, and I remember, Albert Bell was a very bizarre guy,
Yes.
to say the least. But when I played, there was actually an incident that happened when I was playing with them and when I was with the Angels again. But
Are you talking about Joey or Albert? Which guy?
I forget which one he was when these happened, but I think Albert was the one with when I was actually playing with him. But I remember him hitting a pop-up to the infield. And, when he hit a pop-up to the infield, he would never run it out. In fact, you're lucky if he made it halfway down to first base. He would just kind of jog and then walk, and then they'd catch it, and he'd turn around. Well, I don't know. When I looked up and watched I was sitting in the dugout. I looked up and watched the pop fly go up, and somehow he got out to first base, which he normally never really did on those. And I remember the bat boy come running out of the dugout, because it was the third out. And he ran out to Albert to get his helmet, his batting helmet. And rather than Albert just handing it to him, this kid sprinted out there to get his, he's got his hands out wanting to get Albert's batting helmet. And he takes his batting helmet off and fires it back to the backstop, off the backstop. And I'm looking at Mike Hargrove. And the bat boy was just like standing there with his hands out, and all of a sudden the batting helmet flew all the way to the backstop, so he turned around and had to run to the backstop. And I'm looking at Mike like, are you going to say anything about that? Are you going to do anything about that? I mean, I was only there for 3 weeks, so I didn't really know, what went on. I guess whatever Albert wanted to do, he did. But I just thought, what an idiot. Why would somebody do something like that? And then another time when I was with the Angels, we were in town playing the Indians. And, it's ironic. It seemed like every time I ran up in the clubhouse to get a cup of coffee or something to drink or whatever, something happened. And they had a little TV monitor up in the clubhouse. So the Indians were out on the field. Somebody on our team hit a foul ball down into the left field corner, and Albert, playing left field, ran over to get it. And I just happened to, maybe I was pouring a cup of coffee and I was watching this, but Albert went over and they followed him with the camera, and he picked up the ball that was out in the corner, and I saw him kind of jawing with somebody, and then all of a sudden he wound up and fired, and you probably remember this, he threw the ball as hard as he could into the stands and drilled some guy right in the chest, I think. So the guy was pestering him the whole game, I guess, and he was there, and he was, on him, like, throw me the ball. Well, I guess he was having a bad moment, but he turned around from here to there and just smoked the guy with the ball. And I turned around and I was like, because I thought somebody else was in the clubhouse with me, and I go, did you see? And there was nobody there but me. But I was like, go, he just drilled that guy with the baseball. I couldn't believe it. But it was like, and it did happen. I think the guy ended up filing a lawsuit
I
against
think
him.
that's right. I was actually at the game too, the Rob Dibble, where he threw the ball in the stands after they lost to the Cubs. I was at that game at Riverfront and nailed a teacher, and I don't remember if she sued him or not. But yeah, he was a bizarre guy.
And one other thing that happened when I was in my 3-week stint in Cleveland was in the bullpen, because the Indians' bullpen was in right field, or down the right field line. When the Texas Rangers came to town and Jose Canseco was on the Rangers, that ball that he went back on and it hit off
his
the top
head?
of his head.
Yes.
I was standing right there. I was front row seat watching it happen. And it was another one of those, did you see that? I mean, I was like, I couldn't believe that. Drifting back and hit right off the top of his head and went over
Well,
the fence.
since you were in bizarre games, how about Disco Demolition Night?
Yeah.
Anybody remember that one?
Yeah.
So you're at Comiskey.
Just had the anniversary.
That's right. Just celebrated the anniversary. A double dip. Lance Parish is going to catch both games. You guys get game 1 victory. And then all you know what breaks loose. So take us through.
Well,
how
it was the
crazy
build
it was.
up to that particular, I guess the big finale that went off. But the radio station, local radio station in town, the Loop, rock and roll station, had been, as the disco era, and obviously the rock and roll station did not like disco music, so they had a big promotion. And the local radio DJ, which I can't remember his name right now, Steve Dahl. There you go. That's it. He came up with this idea and pitched it to the White Sox, and they accepted it. That they wanted to put on a promotion that if you brought a disco album or record to the game, you got in for $1 or 99 cents or something like that. And at that particular time, the White Sox were not drawing that well, so any kind of promotion that Bill Veeck or Mike Veeck could come up with was like great news to them. And I think actually Mike was the one that okayed this particular promotion. So anyway, they didn't know how many people were going to turn out. They'd been pumping this event the whole week or two in Chicago. Come to see the White Sox and the Tigers play at Comiskey Park, and bring an album, get in for $1. We're going to blow up all these disco albums.
Disco sucks.
In between games. So I don't even know how many people. I think the stadium held 50 or 55,000. I think 70,000 people ended up in the stadium. And it wasn't just because, and they were letting an overflow crowd in there that they didn't have seats for, just so they could stand in the aisles and whatever. They were trying to get as many, but they cut it off at some point. They were beyond capacity as it was, but they actually had people climbing the back walls that couldn't get in. They actually have video of people climbing the back walls and getting in through the second level openings and stuff. People were helping them up, and it was like a prison break, but they were trying to get inside instead of out. So anyway, they had so many people in the stadium, and they were making so much noise, and they had signs hanging everywhere. Disco sucks, this, that, and the next thing. And a lot of the people that brought an album or a record brought more than one. So they might have given one to the person at the ticket booth to get in for 99 cents, but if they had an extra one, they just kept it with them and walked into the stadium. And during that first game, people were firing albums out of the stands and records. Like frisbees, but they're razor thin and razor sharp. And I remember a couple of the guys in the outfield flying right by him and landing on the ground. Plus, they were throwing him out of the upper deck, and they'd come right back into the stand. So I don't know how many people got maimed by flying albums and records during the course of the game. I remember sitting behind the
vinyl
plate.
Tragedy.
I remember sitting behind the plate during the game, catching, and it was later in the game. We had somebody warming up in our bullpen down the right field line, and Ed Putnam was our backup catcher at the time. He was warming the guy up. somebody dropped an M80 out of the upper deck, and I mean, it got that high above his head and went off. And I just happened to glance down there at that time, and boom, and Ed hit the ground like somebody dropped a hand grenade on him. And I was just going, oh my God, I mean, this is really getting out of control here. So anyway, we end up winning the game. A lot of things like people. I remember somebody throwing a golf ball that rolled right up to home plate that had Disco Sucks painted on it. So that they were throwing golf balls and records and anything else, So we go into the intermission. We go up into the clubhouse because in between games, I mean, it was a scheduled doubleheader when they used to schedule doubleheaders. So we went up in the clubhouse. They had to spread for us, sandwiches and whatnot. And we had like the normal hour or 45 minutes, whatever it was in between games. Well, in that time, they were going to have their big event out on the field, which they had made a humongous wooden crate that they wheeled out onto the field in center field. And Steve Dahl, was building it up with the microphone and, talking about how everybody hated disco and we had all these records, we're going to blow them up. And so they did a big countdown and then kaboom, and they blew all the albums up. And I mean, it was a pretty big explosion. And, the thing that I remember, and I think I went down there for a minute, and that was after they had called the game. But they had fire burning out in center field. I don't know what was burning. I assume it was some of the albums, a pile of albums that caught on fire. But shortly thereafter, when they blew the albums up, people started coming out of the stands, and then more were coming out of the stands, and pretty soon everybody came out of the stands, and they're running around, and after a while you think, okay, they're just running around having a good time. Well, they literally tore the field apart. I think they dug home plate out of the ground and dug the pitcher's mound out of the mound. They were tearing big chunks of sod up. So, pretty soon the cops are out there chasing everybody around, trying to get them off the field, and the people didn't even care. They were dancing around. It was like, Woodstock or something, They were just having the greatest time. Bill Vex on the PA system trying to talk everybody. Okay, everybody's had a great time, Let's get back, into the stands so we can get ready to start the second game. That didn't work. Mike Veck, I don't know if he got on the microphone or not, but Harry Carey
Yep.
and Jimmy Pearsall were the broadcast guys, and Jimmy Pearsall's nuts anyway, and he was just saying, he couldn't, what a travesty it was, he couldn't believe it. Harry Carey singing "Take Me Out to the Ball Game," trying to get everybody back in the mood, and okay, everybody, we've had a great time. Let's get back to our seats so we can get, and it was just like talking to the wall. Nobody listened to anything. And we're up watching again on the little TV we had that was, now they have huge big screens in all the clubhouses. We had a little TV that we were watching with the video feed, and they were destroying the field. So we're all watching it going, oh, my God, there's no way we can play this game. So I remember Mark Fidrich was actually on our team back then. Him and Dave Rosemup grabbed batting helmets and stuck them on backwards and grabbed a bat and ran down into the dugout so they could watch what was going on. And they no sooner got down into the dugout and the cops chased them back up into the clubhouse. They weren't allowed out there. So during the course of events, I think some other guys milled down there and were figuring out what. But anyway, as we were talking about, they called the game. And we were all rooting for it. It's like we had already played one game and won. Nobody wanted to play another one, really. And if we could get a forfeit out of the deal and end up winning the game with only having to play one, so be it. We were all, yeah. So after a while, they could not. The umpires went out there. Sparky was irate. And he's going, there's no way that, I'm letting my players out on this field with the condition. I mean, they tore all the grass out in front of the pitcher's mound was off the field. They tore it all out. Plus the plate, they were they had to put a brand new home plate in. They were trying to get that. And Sparky was so adamant about it with the umpires that finally the umpires just said, that's it, we're calling the game. So, yeah.
We went over. I could do another hour with this guy easily. But I want you guys to get a chance to meet him. I hope you've enjoyed it. Lance, thanks so much for doing this. Lance Parish, everybody.
Yeah, enjoy it. Brings back memories.
And by the way, I didn't have a problem with you wearing an Indians hat in the All-Star game.